I decided to conduct a special military operation.
Russian propaganda seems to have no limits.
Its goal is the protection of the people who suffered from abuse and genocide from the Kiev regime.
There isn't just a war taking place in Ukraine right now. It's also taking place in your phone, a war of narratives.
You are not just a consumer, you're a target.
In this video, I want to show you how social media has become one of Putin's biggest weapons for spreading disinformation, or that's what he thought. But first, we need to understand the importance of strategic narratives. This is Carl von Clausewitz. He's a 19th century big dog in military theory, and for him, the moral elements are among the most important in war. Figure out how to shatter a rival's spirit, you might win the war while avoiding the enemy army entirely.
Story and ideas matter.
And this is Peter Singer. He's a defense expert and co-author of this book, Like War, The Weaponization of Social Media.
They matter in not just what people think and believe, but how they act. And that's true of individuals who's thinking about buying something or not, to should I fight or not? Should I join this army? Should I join this terrorist group? And so what we found is that ideas have always mattered. That's really what determines victory or surrender in a war for thousands of years.
So what's this got to do with Russia?
The American president was poised between two of history's greatest battles, the World War that was ending and the Cold War that would replace it.
Well, around 1947, the Cold War began. You see, the Soviets had recognized the importance of information, and more significantly, the importance of deliberately spreading false information, aka disinformation. In fact, it's rumored that after World War II, Joseph Stalin actually came up with the word disinformation, but to make it sound of French origin instead. I mean, that could be disinformation in itself, right? And this is where the KGB comes in, which was basically the primary intelligence agency or secret police of the Soviet Union. It's believed that during the Cold War, the Soviet Union conducted more than 10,000 disinformation operations, which involved spreading fake stories and conspiracy theories. As the KGB Major General said at the time, this was to drive wedges in the Western community alliances of all sorts, and thus to prepare ground in case the war really occurs.
So a great example of this is a old Russian spy operation in the 1980s called Project Infection. And basically what they did is they spread the falsehood that HIV/AIDS, which was just starting at that moment, and there was a lot of fear around it, they spread the falsehood that this was created in a US military lab. Of course, not true.
Initially, in the first decades of the Cold War, although the US was tracking this disinformation, the White House supposedly saw it as a minor issue, unworthy of high-level attention.
Now, I tell you this story because that operation took the Soviets multiple years to reach hundreds of thousands of people with that disinformation. By contrast now, the difference is with social media, it put their efforts on steroids, so to speak.
The political center had collapsed. Power had shifted from the Kremlin to the republics.
December 25th, 1991, the death of the Soviet Union. What is the Facebook exactly?
How big do you think your product or your service is?
Well, it's impossible to tell. Who knows where we're going next?
Is Twitter the next big internet success story?
I think it's huge because never before have we had such access to that immediate information.
It was an interesting moment in the history of Instagram because at that moment I looked over to Mike and I said, I think we've created something new and different and interesting.
So the way to think about social media is it combines two types of communication technologies that have been world-changing in history. So you either had technologies like the printing press. You'd print out a book, a magazine, a newspaper, and then many people could read it. Or you had technologies like the telegraph or the telephone. It connected two people. Someone in England could communicate instantaneously with someone in New York for the first time, but it was one-to-one communication. With social media, you bring that together into the same place. And then also because it's not locked into wires or the distance that the radio wave can travel, you can share that information with someone who's on the other side of the world. And that's powerful.
And while social media has been an extremely effective tool in advancing the speed and breadth of communication, this is a tool that can be used for good and for bad.
We are in a world now where virality trumps veracity. What do we mean by that? It's more important that that information go viral, its speed, its reach, than it be true or not. Now, I need to be 100% clear here. The truth can go viral, but it's not the truth of the matter that makes it go viral. It's whether it takes off online. And so, that's a major challenge in our world, of course, because on all sorts of issues, we've seen either misinformation or disinformation. We've seen those go viral.
Fake news, fake news, fake news. It's all fake news.
And then have a greater effect than the truth of the matter. And so that's part of how social media can become a weapon.
And it's no secret that misinformation and disinformation spreads fast. In 2018, these data scientists found that fake stories on Twitter spread 6 times faster than real ones. And as these statistics suggest, these fake news stories are 70% more likely to be retweeted than true stories. Skip to 2014, and the Ukrainian president at the time rejected a deal for greater integration with the European Union, and lots of Ukrainian people weren't happy about this. Long story short, Putin thinks this might be a good time to annex Crimea. Social media started to swarm with disinformation, and Russian state media was accused of distorting facts and lies, and the Kremlin accused the Western and Ukrainian media of doing the same. And then Putin's army started entering Ukraine. Or well, they supposedly did because Russia completely denied it at the time. Like, this conflict wasn't just taking place physically, it was also happening online, and it confused a lot of people. What was real, what wasn't, just like Russia wanted. According to the former US ambassador to NATO, this was nothing less than the most amazing information blitzkrieg we have seen in the history of information warfare. And since, these disinformation campaigns have grown even bigger. In around 2015, Western media started to pick up on a troll factory of 300 people in St. Petersburg. The duties of these trolls were to publish to the internet, mainly social media, posts praising Putin and criticizing countries not supporting Russia.
A mid-20s Russian sitting in St. Petersburg can pop up a false story on Instagram about anything from Brexit to Hillary Clinton to coronavirus. And it'll take them a matter of minutes, and it might be seen by a couple hundred people. It might be seen by 30 million people in an hour.
But it wasn't just people doing this. There were also these things called botnets. These are robotic fake accounts, and they're just like troll factories, and they can spread disinformation, but at a much faster pace.
So it's that ability to reach into other populations with such ease, and to get parts of that population to do the work for you, to click on it, to share it themselves. That's the difference now with the Russian efforts in kind of this space.
During the US election in 2016, Facebook's internal analysis estimated that 126 million users saw disinformation on its platform. Bots were also linked to the Scottish referendum and Brexit, and it's also believed that they were used to sow social divisions in America by stoking conversation around a plethora of controversial topics. Yet social media platforms were slow to act, and at the time, not much was done to tackle what was happening online.
The Russians were basically pushing on an open door. The governments were not documenting, pushing back. The platform companies were basically allowing it to happen. The population wasn't all that aware of what was going on.
And of course, disinformation isn't just confined to Russia. In 2018, this report found evidence of formally organized social media manipulation campaigns in 48 countries. Okay, wow. That was a lot to take in. So what does this all mean for what's happening with Putin's invasion in Ukraine right now? Well, we're already seeing a lot of misinformation and disinformation online.
Some of this content is not real. It might be content that is from a previous war, where, this is what's happening here, and then someone will track the video and be like, actually, that's from 2015. Or it might be something that's staged, much like reality TV, much like most of your TikToks. You've also got what you might think of as a bias side. You're seeing little dots of information that might go viral, but that doesn't mean that they're telling the whole story.
Dear Ukrainians, Russian propaganda seems to have no limits. Every day new fakes, new degradation.
However, critics believe that the disinformation strategy has not been as effective as it once was.
By contrast, what we're seeing in the Ukraine war is those old Russian tactics not as effective, and in fact, the Ukrainian side has picked them up and utilize them much better. So we've seen the Ukrainians are the ones that are pushing out narratives, stories of everything from heroicism, to sacrifice, to Russian targeting of civilians, to mocking the Russians, jokes, memes, you name it. And so essentially the information battle has been won more by the Ukrainians. Now, does it mean Ukraine somehow wins the overall war? No, but it definitely created a situation where the West rallied to Ukraine's aid in terms of providing weapons, sanctioning Russia in a manner that Russia definitely did not expect.
There's this quote from Singer's book that I really like. Because virality can overwhelm truth, what is known can be reshaped. Power on this battlefield is thus measured not by physical strength or high-tech hardware, but by the command of attention. History has shown the power of disinformation and misinformation to form divisions and fuel confusion. But if you think about it, this has only been made possible because in many instances, it wasn't taken seriously or was acted on too slow. And if the early days of this Russian invasion has shown us anything, it's the need to better equip ourselves with the tools to fact check what we're seeing online.
You have to think about your own responsibility here. Again, you are not just a consumer, you're a target, you're a combatant. What you decide to share out or not drops you into this information war. And so you have to take responsibility for, basically protecting the others in your network from mis and disinformation. What you share either is good information that informs them, or it's bad information that enables those efforts to battle out, those efforts to poison the ecosystem.